and welcome to the International Church of Cannabis. My name is Hash, and I have been coming to this Elevationist ministries for about maybe a month and a half. The building is absolutely amazing, and first I want to begin by thanking Steve Burke and the rest of the organizers for just providing us with this amazing space where we can actually come and consume cannabis and become one with each other. I've been given this amazing and beautiful opportunity to connect with all of you on a level which we will go into soon, which will be unprecedented. So, what I wanted to talk to you about tonight, the subjects that I wanted to touch upon, they're of a very serious nature. And I wonder if we may go into them together. And what I mean by that is that if we may ponder over these things together. Most of us are here week after week, and I see all of your beautiful faces and all the newcomers as well. Most of us are here week after week, not only to seek companionship, to seek camaraderie, to seek a socializing and connection with other human beings of like mind, but we are here because we are serious. We are serious individuals, aren't we? Serious about our minds, about our consciousness, about our bodies, and about our well-being. So, as I begin speaking and as you are listening to the speaker, if I may humbly and respectfully request that we keep in mind that the speaker is often the most unfortunate person in any conversation. Because as we are listening to the speaker, as my words leave my body, these compressed airwaves, and they enter your ears, meaning is ideated upon, right? And the mind begins to mentate and piece together a meaning. As this meaning is being formed, certain conclusions, images are being thrown up by the mind. And then what the mind does, I've noticed that it begins to look into these images. So, as we are listening to the speaker, we must be careful, because the trap that we fall into is that we assign an authority to the speaker. Because the speaker comes from the word author, authority, so we fall at our knees and we worship authority, right? And then we say, I am in revolt against the authority that is outside, which is the society, which is the culture. And then the mind becomes completely in revolt to that outer authority, and it turns inwardly and says, I must be listening to myself. Now I will turn inwardly because I am the universe, and then thus begins the ego. Thus begins the self. And the mind says, I must listen to myself, my own authority. Yet the mind never realizes that the inner authority that it has turned to is a result of the outer authority that has conditioned the organism from birth, right? So the trap that the individual falls into is this trap of ego. And the individual says, my authority, my authority, my authority. But what we are looking at tonight, as we are listening to the speaker, is to abstract away from authority, right? And to realize that the problem is not an outer authority of the world or society or culture or institutions, but the problem isn't even of the inner authority that we turn into. But the problem really is of authority itself. As Dr. Terence McKenna, a great psychedelic explorer, once said, authority is a lie. It's an abomination. And as such, as we are listening to me, the speaker, I really want to emphasize this point, that I don't have any conclusions to present, and I don't have any answers. So as we are listening, then the question becomes, what does it mean to listen? Are we listening to the speaker, or are we listening to only our own self-projections, which we either agree or disagree? Because if we are to assign an authority to the speaker here, then we fall into the trap of agreements and disagreements. Because an agreement or a disagreement, either of these avenues, they stop the inquiry. And the inquiry is the very structure of the me, right? The me, the ego, the I, the individual, the self that ideates, that mentates upon my own existence. Let me begin with a story of a 3-year-old boy. His grandmother was a Bihar shaman from India, and he was lucky enough to have received the psychedelic called ayahuasca at the age of 3. And then his conditioning began. He was given traditions, customs, all sorts of philosophies, made to study from morning till evening, not like other children. Then once this child grew up a little bit, came to the United States at the age of 12, he discovered that his parents were psychiatrists. And having been conditioned as he was, he began to dive deeply into those books, like Jung, like Sartre, like Henry David Thoreau, like the transcendentalist movement of the 17th century. And having looked deeply into the mind and everything else, now that we have established what it means to listen, to not establish an authority to the speaker, and let us begin together. Now that we are here together in this beautiful and amazing space, right? We are meeting each other physically, but let's now meet each other psychologically, right? Let us together in this beautiful space meet each other on that psychological level. And beginning from this common starting point, we begin the journey together into the very structure, the very psychological structure of man that produces all of existence within the mind. Because existence, and these are all realizations that came to me through cannabis, through a lifetime of using massive amounts of cannabis. That existence is a movement of action and reaction, right? And action and reaction are a relationship without which we cannot function. We cannot exist, without which we cannot even do anything, basically. So, I've also noticed that this action and this reaction, they seem to constantly produce this heat, this friction, this animosity, this confusion, right? So what do we witness about us in the world? We witness about us in the world confusion, right? Brutality, jealousy, violence, right? Anxiety, and even at the immolation of ourselves, at all or action organized or disorganized, any kind of worship, any kind of system of thought. And all of these conflicting ideas, this confusion, this misery, right? We are in the midst of it. And we as mindful people have recognized that it is our responsibility, that we must begin by understanding ourselves. And in this understanding, there is born this action. This action which is purely karmic to the organism. Which isn't a response of memory, which is thought, conditioning, which is society and culture telling me what I should do or I should not do. Like, please note here that I'm not saying that we should be in revolt with society, we should go against everything. I mean, if we are to function peacefully, if we are to function naturally, and intelligently and sanely and healthily in this world. We must have this understanding of ourselves. So now begins the question, what is the me? What is the me that is looking to some sort of a reformation of action? And when this happens, when there is this desire in the individual for that radical mutation in the mind, that desire to change all of humanity, this individual invariably then decides upon some sort of a course of action, right? And this action then either becomes into a mass action or the individual action. So the action is then become divided. And we must notice that to understand the action of the organism that does not produce further misery, further conflict, further brutality in the world, furthering more misery and toil, we must understand ourselves. I cannot enforce this enough. We must understand ourselves. What is ourselves? And I must go into this. This is a very, very important thing, to understand ourselves, because we are here as serious people. We're not here simply to just listen to a speaker and then, okay, that's it, we're done. He's going to give us some sort of a spiritual answer. He's going to give us some spirituality and then we're done. No, it doesn't work like that. I mean, it is your responsibility to challenge every single thing that I say within your mind. Go into it deeply, inquire. And only within this prodding and this poking of the individual will you understand what it means to be. Doesn't mean to be anything, but just simply to be. So what is this individual? Individual, right? We always just look past the words because we're on linguistic autopilots. But if we examine what is individual, right? It comes from the word indivisible. But not only physically. Right? Physically, I can be divided. So I must not be an individual if I can be physically divided. But let's abstract away from the physical host. Let's look at the consciousness. An individual is indivisible, meaning it is a complete and total unit. A complete entity, a whole being that simply cannot be divided. But if I am conflicted within, if I have a contradiction of ideas within myself, a contradiction of beliefs, then there is inherent division within me, right? So the individual is divided, then it is no longer the individual. What does it mean to be indivisible? Is there a method? Is there a system of thought? Is there a formula? Is there a belief? Is there anything that leads to it? I mean, if there was something that led to it, then wouldn't that be something adopted by the whole of humanity? Why is it that we are so conflicted, that we have different desires? It is one man pitted against another man. Why? Why is it? Why? And one time I drank a lot of bhang back home in India, right? And it's just massive amounts. And I was basically tripping, and cannabis visuals in full swing. And the one thing that was on my mind was, what is this entity that is seeing things? And what are the visuals made of? And I went into it and I looked at it and I found out that every single thing that circles around my field of existence are thoughts. So it is thought that has made me. I am all of everything that I have ever experienced, everything that I can ever think, everything that I have ever hoped and dreamed and imagined. All of my memories, my hopes and my anxieties, my fears, my delusions, all of this content of this consciousness is the me. This is the entire contents of the me. And what is the me? Again, we come down to, it's a very, very, and I've been given just a little bit of time tonight, but what I really wanted to go, this is something that could take weeks and months and just years to dive into. So how am I to give you something that took me decades I can't, so it becomes really very, very difficult to try and describe that. And I feel a little bit lost up here actually also, because the things that I want to go into, they all touch upon like one through the, because the way existence works is that there is the field of existence. Within the field of existence, there is this observer and the observed that are united by the act of observation. With this act of observation springs into being the observer and you, which is the observed. In this entire field of existence, they're not disconnected. Stimulus and response are a unitary motion, a solitary system. It is confined, but it is infinite, unlimited. So this solitary motion of a unified action of this complete system, which is the observer, the observed, the entire field of existence, what we realize is that I here as the observer, you here as the observed, or for you it's the other way around. Now, within the observer and the observed, there's this physical space, right? Now, in this physical space, there is now born this interval of time. We're not looking at physics. We're simply just looking at the time that must be covered for the observer to see the observed, right? In this time that must be covered, there's an infinite thoughts. For example, I look at you. You are my observed. I see that you are a human being. You have skin color which is fair-skinned or light. You have a certain clothing. You have a certain style. All of these thoughts, the conditioning of knowledge that I'm able to identify, right? But if we realize that thought simply functions as knowledge about the observed, and if thought no longer functions as knowledge about the observed, then is there a divided space between the observer and the observed? See, I hope I'm making myself clear. Is this obvious? Because when there is no longer the divisive space, then we are one. Right? So the only reason I am divided from you is that knowledge, which is the conditioning of thought, tells me that I have something called skin. It is brown. That I'm from this place and you're from that place. So when you go and take massive amounts of cannabis, and I'm not talking just simply, smoking it. I'm talking drinking bhang, which is the psychedelic, cannabis drink, and really going into the cannabis space. It's like an onion, this existence that we feel, right? And layers of it start to peel off. Every single layer is a single thought. Each of these thoughts is a distortion within the field of my existence. Because thought is the quantum wave unit of consciousness. It is the wave packet, it is the wave function of consciousness. And as it moves about in the field of consciousness, it produces a distortion. So thought literally is distortion. What is the goal in any meditation? Is to be thoughtless, right? Because the meditation gurus and masters, if we will, I don't really like using those words, but the people that have done this have seen that thought is the one thing that is the enemy of the organism. Somewhere along the way in human evolution, we experienced thought. And thought began to divide one man from his other man, from his fellow man. And this is the conditioning of knowledge that divides one man from the other man. And this brings us to a deeper understanding of ourselves. What am I? I am what the culture and society has given me. What is the individual? The individual is indivisible. It cannot be divided. It means to be whole, not to be fragmented within. Not to view my existence as this fragment that I become aware of, or I become aware of that fragment, right? But to become aware of the whole. The whole that is the me, without any fragmentation within myself. So here's something interesting you guys might like to know. The word holy, it comes from this ancient Anglo-Saxon word, hail, which means healthy, which means whole. Even the word healthy in medicine comes from the word hale in Anglo-Saxon, which means whole. So holy, which is psychological, and healthy, which is physical, and which is the body, both of these, they all come from the same root word, which is whole, which is to be whole, the wholeness of the individual. And when one becomes whole, one realizes that one is not divided. I'm not divided from you. Like when I view you, when I'm looking at you, you exist within my consciousness. Like as I look at you, the photons are coming off. Sure, I can view you in here. But say, for example, I can't see something that I cannot see. I meditate upon a galaxy 10 billion light years away from here. Where is this galaxy existing? Right? Is it out there in space somewhere? Or is it a galaxy that is in my consciousness? In the now. So here's something that this thought about the entanglement within my consciousness, and one can view it as quantum entanglement or whatever, but my consciousness is connected to this galaxy out there somewhere. And this begins my idea with looking into nature. What is nature? Nature is the mother. I mean, this is not something that we can just say. I want to go into, find out why is nature the mother. I don't want to just accept something. Is it because it sounds poetic, because it sounds good, because some guy who has, good sounding language like me, or somebody else who has intelligent sounding language, he speaks something and we are bound to accept authority, right? We are slaves to authority. We are conditioned with that. So anybody with good language or a snake tongue or wise words, he comes around and we're bound to listen to his words. But I challenge everything I say, go into it. Because what I say, nature is the mother. Why is nature the mother? Am I different from nature? Am I disconnected from nature? I am the earth, right? I'm born of the earth. I'm not disconnected from it. I might feel like I'm walking upon the earth, that it's an object that is separate from me. But in every essence, in every meaning, in every detail, the earth is me and I am the earth. Nature is me and I am the nature, right? We can all feel this to be true. And what is the first thing that we begin to notice as we are born and as we grow up? Is it possible that we can take a minute and possibly go into our childhoods? Maybe close our eyes for a second. Take a moment and go into our childhood for a second and see try to remember how it felt when we were, say, 3 or 4 years old. Taking in the beautiful universe as it was without somebody telling us what it is, how it functions, how it should be. So the first, absolute first, the temporal influence of importance upon the mind is that of the order of nature. Every morning, the sun rises and thereafter the sunset, leaning upon the shoulders of the night, with all her stars caressing me with their bright luminance. This is the mind of God. Nature has bestowed upon man her own godhood, and therein man resembles her in spirit and in form. Right? How many of us are able to see this? How many can see that this is as true, as physically true, as pinching my own arm? Yet, culture and society, this modern technological jungle that we have created for ourselves, it has divided one man from his fellow man. But cannabis, marijuana, ganja, bhang, the gift from Lord Shiva, or whatever belief system you have, whatever archetype, whatever psychological archetype a person chooses to subscribe to, right? When we abstract away from all of this, and cannabis does this, I mean, it forces this psychological and alchemical phenomenology of individuation upon the individual. So, I think I'm kind of losing my train of thought. I don't really want to bore you guys. I mean, these are very, very deep. I mean, it'll take me a long time to go into this, and I really, really wanted to use this opportunity that you guys have, and that you're stoned right now, and let's go into and try a little bit of meditation. I want to tell you guys about how I meditate on cannabis, what it does for me. So I just sit there and I put on my favorite music. Music is an absolute must, so you got to have music, right? So first you turn on your favorite music. Journeying deeply inwardly, I follow the call of the body. And is the archaic and true primal nature of man. Like cannabis is the joy giver. It is the pain reliever. It is the one that binds us all in unity. Like I said, it's difficult to describe in words how the layers of this onion, this self, they fall away piece by piece. And then you realize that every single thought is the one that divides me from you. And all of these thoughts begin to fall away. That I have this skin color, I'm from here, I'm from there. All of these various things. That you like this, you have different kind of music. You have different belief, you have a different idea. All of these various things that divide me from you. If we take all of this away, what remains? All of these illusions. Because say, for example, the one thing that we don't know is God. Is that ultimate spirituality, that ultimate order, the supreme order of the mind, the supreme intellect, which is love, right? That's what we are all seeking, the supreme order of the mind, where the mind simply won't be hurt. It won't be taxed. It won't be bruised, right? That's that supreme order. This is what we are seeking. Cannabis helps to realize that supreme order. And this supreme order is the virtue of that rightful existence, which is bliss, beatitude, pleasure. Because what we have been conditioned with is the fact that, existence is conflict. So we must learn to deal with the conflict and make most of it. I say nay, absolutely not. I reject this. I absolutely reject this hideous ideology. That there must be conflict and we must deal with it. Absolutely not. Because as soon as the mind says, there must be conflict, well, the conversation is over, right? There's nothing to do anymore. But if the mind says, yes, there is a modality of existence in which there is no conflict, then the mind begins to look, right? Then it says, now that there is, I'm going to find it. And then what you are seeking, you will eventually find. So this is the story of cannabis, in a sense, and how it leads to recognizing all of these things. And this is just simply awareness. I mean, this is not something that a shaman can do. This is not something that a psychologist does. I mean, we are looking to the authority of all of these people. Look, sirs, my dear sirs and madams, anybody can do what I have done. I am not special, and neither, if I'm special, then anybody is. There's only two possibilities. Either I'm special and nobody is, which is a very, very unlikely thing, or that everybody is special, which is a much more likely possibility, yes? So the responsibility falls upon your shoulders, not a psychologist, not a religious guru, not a spiritual guru, not the holy man, not the science man, right? It's not going to come from anybody else. We are here as serious people because we care about our minds. We want to understand this because we have realized that we are not in opposition to society. We are the society, we are the world. And to change the world, we must begin here. We must not begin outside, because that is illusion. And the ultimate illusion is of that supreme order that we are all chasing. And what cannabis helped me realize is that spirituality, enlightenment, moksha, jiyu, freedom, liberation, all of these things are illusions. Illusions generated by thought. Illusions given to me by the holy man, by the psychologist. Because as we have just established previously, the self, right? The self is the source of all division within man. The concept of the self, the I, the ego, because the I will always stand alone, which brings me to that supreme intellect that cannabis gives you, which is love. What is love? Is love an action? Is it a thought? Is it something that we do? Right? Or is love that supreme existence, that order of existence in which there is no conflict? Because as long as the I exists here, the I will always create a you, always that is out there, divided from the I. And then the I says, how lovely it would be to unite myself with the you. And then the I says, I love you. And then love becomes an action, limited to a thought, limited to an action, right? And then everybody has their own how to love, their own. So and this is the supreme order. Since nobody knows what the supreme order is that we are looking for, everybody has their own. For example, I say the word tree. Nobody has any idea what specific tree I talk about, but the image pops in the mind. Everybody has a general consensus. We all know what a tree is. But when I say spirituality, when I say God, when I say wholeness, we don't have an image that everybody knows. So we create our own image within the mind. And thus begins our division. So can we abstract away from all of these various divisions produced by thought and realize that man is not divided from his fellow man, that he is united, that the peace that he seeks, that is the illusion generated by everybody else, the peace already exists within this body? Because as long as thought says there is spirituality out there, you must make an effort or a practice to get to it, we'll be lost. Because there's a peace, a tremendous peace existing within the body. Because as the mighty stoned ape in the system of the animal, I am a perfect piece of creation. A perfect machinery as generated and created by nature. Unique, unprecedented, unparalleled. Just like every single one of you. But as the human being in the culture and in the society, I am rotten to the core. Because of their conditioning, because of their divisiveness, because of this lack of love. And we must understand all of these things. It is extremely important not to see people say they take psychedelics, they take cannabis, and they talk about the dissolution of the self or the ego, the killing of the ego. Oh, I suffered ego death. Well, what is the ego? Ego simply is Latin for I, for the self. Again, the concept is the same. And on that note, even though I've been all over the place tonight, because I wanted to touch upon a little bit of everything, what it really boils down to is personal responsibility. Again, I must repeat, we are here as serious people. Serious because we are serious about our minds, about our bodies, and about our environment. Not because we are, mindless stoners looking for a good time, looking to just be stoned and just talk and laugh. Of course, that's a great time. I am all for that, but we are serious people. And I applaud every single one of you for being here, for giving me your time and for listening. Not only for listening, but actually listening, for going into it with me, for taking this journey together with me into the very structure of the me. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for being here in this absolutely beautiful building. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, David. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, everybody else. Namaste.